Okay, I don't know if this has happened to anybody else, but certainly a couple of months ago I noticed that I was missing the command mode dial, the little dial that sits on the top of the command mode on my Canon EOS 5D Mark III. So it came with a bit of a shock because you're suddenly looking at it and think, well, there's just a black space there, what's going on? I did a little bit of Googling around, of course, as you do, to find out. I was a little bit annoyed that Canon wouldn't give me a quote over the phone to replace a simple part like this very, very cheap little piece of aluminium with some printed information on it. I had to send it in. I had to post the thing or drop it off, which is somewhat annoying because then they're going to take 2.5 weeks to get me a quote to say it actually only costs blah, blah, blah. I suspect it costs quite a bit. In fact, I've read that it may cost up to $80 to have this replaced. So, of course, you do what you do. You get online and you find a replacement for the command dial, pretty much for every camera available. I picked this one up from China. Of course, it took about 5 weeks to deliver by post, and I think it cost me $4.50, so I'm pretty pleased with that. What it also does is comes with a bit of double-sided tape, and so this is really cheap double-sided sticky tape. And I've read some pretty angry people on the internet who've bought these little gizmos and they've stuck them on, and of course they fall off pretty quickly. So there's a lesson to be learned there. And actually, when you think about this, it's a very flimsy piece of tape. And when you look at it, there are actually only 3 positions, 3 tiny little positions in here that are raised up enough to actually stick onto the tape. So it's got almost no grip actually onto the tape anyway. So I'm not surprised it doesn't stick. So of course, I think there's absolutely no point in being angry about it because number one is you're paying 10 times the price for Canon to do it, and indeed you can just use some super glue or some other kind of adhesive to fix it on there. So let's have a bash at doing that. One thing that is kind of important to remember, of course, is to get this thing on the right way round. And of course you can do it quite easily because there is a tiny little notch, and I don't think the camera lens will actually pick this up. There's a tiny little notch just there, which means when it sits in place, it actually only sits in one place, and that's pretty much there. So that's pretty much happy, and I can rotate that around, and of course that works. It flicks around the right way. So if it kept on going round, I'd be a little bit worried, but that looks as though, while it's sitting in that position, to be totally perfect. So that's pretty good. So a clue also is to have a look with a magnifying glass, or if you're like me, you need a magnifying glass, or just have a damn good look at it, because what you'll find is it's incredibly dirty. And as I say, this was done 2 months ago. So here, you know, Q-tip cotton bud is really handy to get rid of some of the dust and rubbish that's been sitting under this little button for a number of years. Now I've also cheated a little bit because I've already done a little bit of cleaning, but I've also got this old can of Ilford photo dust remover left over from the good old darkroom days. So you can give it a quick blast just to get rid of any surplus surface dirt that may be hanging around inside this area. Then we move on to the nervous bit, I suppose, which is applying the super glue. And of course, with super glue, typically what happens when I do this is you squeeze it and the bloody stuff goes everywhere, which it just did, because this has been sitting in the cupboard for I don't know how many months, and we need to just tidy that up a little bit. So I need to get in there very, very carefully and put 3 tiny little drops of super glue in place. And I'm just going to test this. There we go. So we need to put that very, very carefully in place, pretty much on there, tiny little drop on there, and the last little sort of raised nodule there. Forgetting completely about where I was, I've got to remember that I'm going to pop the little fella into there, and it clicks into place. Oops, and then it just drops out again. There we go, let's just try it again. And it clicks into place. As you can see, it's very, very fiddly to do. And I'm going to leave it there to sit for a while, and that essentially is how easy it is to replace. But I think above all, how cheap it is. So if you don't want to send it to Canon and pay large amounts of money, the best thing to do is buy the little spare part online, and Bob's your uncle, you can fix it yourself.